Don't lose your way. Your mind, we have to be as one.
What's going on, YouTube? Orstorm here, coming at you guys with another video today. I apologize for the delay on video, but this is the first time I've had a day off in several days. I've actually didn't get back home till Monday afternoon, so wasn't able to get around to recording new content. However, of course, today I'm going to bring you guys a ban list discussion. So while because we don't have a confirmed ban list end date, we don't know when we're getting a ban list, but nevertheless, I feel like it was about high time to talk about it and see what changes I would like to see. We'll talk about some cards that I personally would like. These are like biased opinions. I would like to see these cards come off the limited list, and so let's talk about it. So over in the OCG, they actually completely banned Level Eater. Now, the reason I talk about Level Eater isn't so much the card itself. It's the fact it's part of a hand loop. Hand loops are something that Konami typically treats very harshly. I mean, Wind Up Carriers and Mighty is still sitting on the ban list to this day. Over in the OCG, they actually banned Wind Up Hunter, which is the card that causes the loop in the first place. And over there, it's actually an OTK deck. If you play Wind Ups without Hunter, that's essentially what they are, is an OTK deck, because obviously Shockmaster and a lot of the while there are still some defensive rank 4s, a lot of the really powerful ones are firmly placed on the ban list. So, but mostly talking about, back to Level Eater. Level Eater enables Dark Synchro to summon multiple Omegas and a Trishula in a turn, and effectively lock down your opponent, and while the deck jerks off for 20 minutes. I don't think this card is fair by any stretch of the imagination. It is not a hard once per turn, and just looking at windups and looking at the ban list, cards like Delinquent Duo, the Forceful Sentry, Trash Upshoot are all placed on the ban list because they interfere with cards in hand, and that's definitely something that Konami treats pretty harshly with the ban list. I mean, we just got had Wind Up Magician finally come up to 2 on our last ban list, so it kind of gives you an idea how Konami typically treats these types of situations. Obviously, limiting Cyframe Lord Omega would probably put it in check entirely. I personally don't think Omega is a ban-worthy card, but it's definitely a card that can't stay at 3. We'll get to a little bit more later. But overall, I feel like Level Eater is a card we could also see banned in the TCG, because there's a lot of times where, while there's certain cards we don't have that the OCG does, there's typically Konami likes to, copy a lot of the things the OCG does. So, that's definitely something to think about. Of course, a card that was banned in the OCG's last week, Night Spectre Unicorn, Kieran. As you guys know, I wasn't really an advocate of hitting this card. However, I've kind of moved a lot away from it. I feel like Kieran is the type of card where you either have it 3 or at nothing. The reason is, even though you can have multiples out, its effect is a hard once per turn. So multiples, while it's good, theoretically, having multiples out doesn't do a lot for you, because you can't activate its effect multiple times in a turn. Kieran is basically like the new age kind of like Pallades, but it's basically a Pallades that can be summoned every turn that can't be targeted or destroyed. And it's also searchable. I feel like it's the type of card that it's either at 3 or it's at nothing. And I feel like it's more than and the biggest thing is, like, unlike a lot of annoying, problematic monsters to deal with, you can't kaijuing it doesn't really accomplish anything, because it's just going to come back next turn. Overall, I feel like Kieran, definitely, just judging from like playing against Kieran, in Pendulum Mirrors, it's just a card that's way too powerful, especially with the Magician Structure deck coming out and in the TCG probably sometime this year. I just don't think Konami is going to leave Kieran sitting at legal much longer. So yeah, I honestly think Kieran is probably going to go from 1 to banned. It wouldn't shock me at all. Now for some of the limited cards, and I'll kind of go into a little bit of discussion on these cards. Anti-Spell Fragrance, I feel like, is a card that probably should be at 1. I feel like, while it's not quite like Vanity's Emptiness, where it's a fact is we have ABCs, a deck that can abuse this card, and yes, it shuts down the pendulum mechanic, and it's sort of similar to what Konami. I feel like, if you remember Dragon Ruler format, Soul Drain was limited to 1 because that card just prevented Dragon Rulers from playing the game. I feel like Anti-Spell Fragrance has a multitude of reasoning why it should be at 1. It slows a lot of decks down to a crawl. A lot of decks cannot function without spell access. Decks, like, a great example is, I got locked out of both games at my regional playing Herald. I couldn't activate any of my ritual spells. I had a pre-prep in hand that couldn't be activated right away. It's a really card that just, besides just completely shutting down the pendulum mechanic, it just shuts down so many decks. And part of the reason I think it's remained at 3 for so long is Konami fears their own mechanic. And I definitely think that, but I still think that Anti-Spell Fragrance, while I don't think it should be banned, it probably needs to be firmly placed at 1 on the ban list, just because so many decks just cannot play with this card. And I feel like it's sort of like skill drain. I feel like having it is it should be hit because ABCs do make really good use of this card. A lot of people have been talking about terraforming being hit to 1, and my thing with terraforming is part of the it's a multitude of reasonings why this card why I don't think it should be hit. It's definitely something that's on the radar. Konami has been intentionally designing field spells not to be searchable within their own archetype. Cards like, but the thing is, since we got the field spell rule change in 2014, you can definitely, while it didn't happen initially, you can definitely see a trend where we're getting more and more powerful field spells. It kind of started, I think, with Cosmotown, and slowly but surely we got cards like Sky Iris, Majesty Pegasus, heck, even Oracle of the Zephyra. We've just gotten so, and even like cards like, and of course we've got, Union Hanger, which is here, and then you have Union Hanger, you have, you also have cards like Ritual Sanctuary, just really, really powerful field spells. And part of the reason I think Konami changed the field spell rules was to promote better field spells. However, I think the better solution is to probably hit the field spells. I don't know if we should hit Union Hanger to 1 like the OCG did. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. Maybe semi-limiting the A, B, and C, or maybe semi-limiting Union Hanger, maybe limiting Dragon Buster. But overall, I honestly don't think that, I feel like terraforming as a card definitely should stay at 3 because there's so, granted, as you guys know, I play Herald. I play a deck that plays triple terraforming. I do play a lot of decks that run field spells. So, and I have a couple copies of super rare terraforming, so it's definitely a card I am attached to. But I do think that honestly, like, I feel like hitting anything, like any of the main archetypes right now is kind of relevant because, DDDs are coming in their structure deck not too distant future. And then of course, Zodiacs are going to just demolish everything anyways. So, yeah. So I don't think that, honestly, if they do hit ABCs, I would say, obviously limiting Anti-Spell Fragrance does hurt them. They do run a lot of ABC builds run 2 to 3 copies, but semi-limiting Union Hanger might be enough. Or maybe limiting the pieces. We'll see. A lot of people are talking about limiting Speedroid Terror Top, and obviously in the OCG it is placed at 1. The main reason, however, obviously you guys know Terror Top is a card I'm pretty attached to. I don't feel like, it's sort of like, a lot of people compare it to Tour Guide, which I'll get to later, but the thing with Tour Guide is a much better card than Terror Top. Tour Guide can tutor itself from deck. It makes Burning Abyss, it tutors every Burning Abyss monster, meaning you can essentially splash Tour Guide with a Burning Abyss engine and search Tour Guides every end phase. If you have one Tour Guide, you play like cards like, you can play a couple copies of Skarm alongside it. When it was at multiples, I had a lot of decks I had a Dark World deck that would run Tour Guide and play like 2 Tour Guides, 2 Skarms. And I feel like Tour Guide is a lot better than Terror Top. Yeah, because Terror Top, yes, Terror Top doesn't take your normal summon, but I still feel that as good as Terror Top is, it's not a limit-worthy card. It doesn't do the things that Tour Guide does. And I think the bigger problem while I don't know if Dante is still an issue, the deck is fading. While the deck did win a YCS before Invasion Vengeance released, we did see the deck has not really done much at all once Metal Foes got their second wave of support. So while I do think the primary solution is simply just to ban MX Saber Invoker, because this is the card that enables a lot of the Zodiac Beast combos, rather than hitting Terror Top, because outside of Dante and Invoker, there aren't really a ton of like overly amazing rank 3s that, especially, the problem with Terror Top is quickly enables plays that advance your game state, and the thing is, without Invoker, those plays are no longer possible. I don't feel like Terror Top is a limit-worthy card. I feel like Invoker is the card that needs to be hit. But obviously, in the OCG, we saw what happened. I'm briefly going to go over Sangan. Sangan in the, I believe it was in the last Duelist pack. I believe it was in the set that had Lullaby of Obedience. Sangan was printed with its errata text, so more than likely we are going to see it completely come off the list. it could go from. I don't think Konami's gonna mess around. I think this is going to be a DMOC like situation where it goes straight to 3. Outside of Metal Foes, its errata text is not really that useful because it's just they made something that was already slow as it is, and made it worse. So I feel like Sangan, if it does when it does come off the list, we'll probably see very very little play. There are uses for it, like side decking it in Metal Foes, for example, to search cards like Ghost Reaper. But I just don't think that the card is really it wouldn't have been that good if it had just come off the list without an errata anyways. So we're likely going to see it come straight to 3. Then Thunder King Raiho came up from 1. Finally, I've been advocating this card to come up from multiples for a while. Thunder King Raiho, I feel like, is a card that's probably going to come from 2 to 3. It's going to be much like, a lot of cards when they go from 1 to 2. Konami, if they don't do a lot, they typically bump it to 3. So we're going to probably see a format with 3 Thunder King for the first time in a while. A couple cards I want to mention very quickly is Solemn Strike is a card that, a lot of people are advocating for it to get hit, and it did get its reprint. We could see it semi-limited, but the thing is the OCG hasn't even touched the card either. When I first read it, I feel like it was a card that was going to be at 1 at some point, but in the OCG, they do have Harpy's Feather Duster, so that's why a lot of their floodgates are all at 3 over there. So our format's a lot different because our format, while we do have the same traps, our traps are that much better because Harpy's Feather Duster doesn't exist. So it's gonna be interesting to see if Konami does. Most powerful Solemn cards typically get semi-limited and limited, like what happened with Judgment and Warning. So it kind of remains to be seen whether we'll see Solemn Strike placed on the Forbidden/Limited list. I will briefly mention Pot of Desires and Dimensional Barrier. While I do think Dimensional Barrier probably won't stay at 3 forever, it's more likely going to get reprinted before Konami touches it. Same thing for Pot of Desires. You could debate till the cows come home whether, but I definitely don't think it belongs at 3. I feel like being at 1 would be but it's neither here or there. Now for a few more cards before we get to kind of things I'd like to see personally. Obviously the whole Bahamut Shark combo, something has to give, and the OCG's Elder Entity Norden is completely banned over there. While I do think that's a start, I do think limiting Totally Awesome like they did in the OCG is probably the primary solution. Norden is a very powerful card in that it enables those multi-toad boards via Bahamut Shark. People like to compare Bahamut Shark to Ptolemaios, but the thing about Ptolemaios is that not just that it can summon Cyber Dragon Infinity, but the problem with Ptolemaios was that it could play on your opponent's turn. You could go into a Pallades on your opponent's turn, which was amazing in and of itself. That's why Ptolemaios is placed on the ban list. Whereas Bahamut Shark, outside of Treat Toad or Totally Awesome, are you summoning anything else? In Mermails, you might summon Trite, but there's just not a lot of good cards that Bahamut Shark can bring out besides Toad. So if you limit Toad, ban Norden, it kind of fixes the problem. There's some cards I would like to see come up from their position currently on the ban list. These are kind of more biasy opinions, but you're neither. I'm just gonna go over these quickly. Tour Guide from the Underworld. I mentioned this card earlier. I feel like if Burning Abyss do fade out of the format, or especially if Dante is placed at 1, I do think that Tour Guide could probably come up to 2. She is a very powerful card still. She makes Burning Abyss a very, very splashable engine. But nevertheless, I don't think that the deck is doing enough this format to really justify Tour Guide, still being at 1 on the list. I feel like she probably could come up to 2 and it not really do too much. Lavalval Chain is a card I've been saying since the day it got hit that doesn't belong on the ban list. And I feel like it being at 1 wouldn't be. There's not a lot of decks you would really play Tour Guide in. So I feel like Lavalval Chain in right now. And I feel like it's a card that could comfortably be at 1. If you're really that worried about blue-blooded Oni FTK, then put it at 1. But honestly, Lavalval Chain should have never been put on the ban list to begin with, because Dijin was obviously the problem. Skill Drain is a card. I'm one of the few, Skill Drain is probably one of my favorite trap cards ever, and I feel like I'd love to see it come back to multiples again. With Clifford's, kind of being irrelevant, yes, Card Demise is still running around at 3, but I don't think Skill Drain really, that deck is so neutered, I feel like Skill Drain could easily come up to multiples. Then Mathematician is a card I would like to see come straight back to 3. In the OCG, it was recently put to 3, and honestly, I don't know why it was placed at 1 in the first place. Part of me thinks that it was simply because it's a creative combo card, enables a lot of, a lot of my Clown Blade deck when Lavalval Chain was banned, ran this card, and it's an incredible card. I always like cards that you just normal summon and they start combos, and that's what makes Mathematician so good. And when it's destroyed by battle, it lets you draw a card. So I feel like Mathematician is a card that I'd love to see come back to 3 because I feel like it's just such a flexible card. And I like cards that can, start the engine going quickly. And the other obvious thing is, I would like to see Construct come back. I honestly think they did it wrong when they completely banned her. Especially considering they left Dante at 3 and gave Dante, a Foolish on legs as well. I feel like Construct, I feel like Shadal's at full power would probably not do a lot right now. But even so, I feel like you could probably comfortably just limit Construct, for now. But as we all, one thing my friend said that was, Bradley said that was kind of relevant. He said, Konami usually doesn't bring a lot of hit decks off the list. And that's one of the reasons I think, while I do want Construct back, I kind of realistically understand she's probably not coming back for a good long time. So anyway, guys, comes about to the end of a ban list video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. What changes would you like to see Konami make in the next list? And so anyway, guys, as always, thank you guys for watching. So Orstorm, signing out.